Greetings and salutations, YouTubers. This is Zillafan85. Today I've got a new video I'm putting together here. This one, it will be another countdown list. However, this is going to be my my countdown of my top 10 favorite video games ever. For my list, I'd like to obviously point out a couple things, of course. For me personally, I'm more of what would be considered a nostalgic, old school retro gamer. So henceforth, my favorite video games are more of the those retro vintage video games. And in fact, as you can even see on this page right here, actually my three favorite video games are the ones that I've got shown here, the ones I've got illustrated. My all-time favorite video game system is, of course, the Nintendo Entertainment System, otherwise known as the NES. My second favorite is the Sega Genesis, and my third favorite video game system ever is the Sony PlayStation, of course, that being the PS1. Those are the ones, like I said, that I just, growing up, those are the video game systems that I was most familiar with and that I played the most. Of course, those also were the ones that I had growing up and still to this day do have. And I do like some of the other retro game systems too. Of course, I do love the Super Nintendo, the SNES, but I didn't have one, growing up, and so my exposure to it was a bit more limited, so that's why it's not part of my what I would consider my top three. And then also with the newer game systems, I'm just not really big into the newer systems. I don't have any of the current ones, i.e. the Nintendo Switch, the PS4, Xbox One, or their newer renditions like the PS4 Pro, etc., etc. But I don't necessarily have anything against them, and for people that do enjoy the newer systems, that's great, more power to you. It's just that I'm more of a retro gamer, and these are the systems. These three systems here are the ones that I'm most familiar with, and the systems that I prefer. These are the ones that I'll play the most, and I still have my PS2, but I just don't play it as much as these systems. The same thing like with the Nintendo Wii, which I also have. So again, that's kind of why I have these listed, and all of the games on my top 10 list are incorporated in these systems. They're all video games from these various consoles. And the other thing to note with the newer systems, like I said, I have nothing against anybody who's into them. I think the graphics are fantastic, especially as they come out with newer and newer releases, newer versions. But like I said, it's just not really my thing. So that's kind of why I'm into what I'm into. So this is nothing against anybody who's into stuff other than I am. And if I don't include any games that any of anyone else would have on their top 10 list, I certainly do apologize. This is, again, just my opinion. This is just the stuff that I'm accustomed to. Henceforth, why I kind of just wanted to put this together. And I probably will make some more videos upcoming here, actually, on some video games of my personal preference, just to do some more in-depth analysis. I don't know about review, but more of like analysis and stuff, especially the ones that are the top of the list here, the top 2 or 3 probably. I don't want to waste too much time. I've been kind of rambling on. I do apologize. I know my videos always tend to run, so again, I do apologize. But but also though too, I would certainly love to hear from any of you as far as what your favorite games are. Because I just think it's cool to share lists, and I'm just sharing mine. But without further ado, though, let's go ahead and get started. Number 10. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES. And yes, I am listing what system they are from on each of these, on the countdown list here. The original Ninja Turtles for the NES, that is actually my favorite of the Turtles games. I know a lot of people prefer the later editions, which are more the arcade style. But for me, though, I really love the challenge that this game presented. I know it's noted as one of the more difficult games on the Nintendo, and very rightfully so. It is a very, very difficult game to play through. It took me many years before I was finally able to beat it. And I was not able to beat this game in my childhood. It took me into adulthood before I finally did conquer and defeat the game. And I've been able to do it numerous times now, but every time I do run through the game, go through the game, and complete it, I still have a very difficult time doing so. There's just certain strategies that you got to know, certain items to pick up, i.e. the scroll, which are extremely helpful with trying to complete the game. But I love the challenge of it, and I love how the style goes. We actually have that sort of free roam within the game where you can kind of explore around on the different map screens and stuff. I know some of the Turtles villains in there are a bit limited, but I mean you still got Bebop and Rocksteady. You got the Technodrome, of course. Shredder is the main villain. So it's got a lot of great aspects to it, and like I said, I just love the difficulty of it. So henceforth, why for me it definitely made the top 10. So let's go ahead though and move along. Number 9, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage for the PS1. Oh yes, and this is a fantastic game. I'm a huge Spyro fan. As far as video game characters go, he's definitely one of my top favorite characters. Probably not, I wouldn't say the top, but certainly one of the top. Definitely a top 3 character game-wise for me. And I was a huge Spyro fan. One of my earliest introductions was to the Spyro games once I actually attained the PS1, in my early teen years, I would say. I became hooked right off the bat. And the second game definitely had a lot of elevated points to it, where they took some things from the original game and then kind of added some different ways of playing through different things that you had to do. And this one kind of paved the way for the rest of the of that PlayStation, PS2 era Spyro games, I would say. Before they came out with like the Legend of Spyro before then. So, these more original type Spyro games, this one sort of paved the way for it. But this was done to me better than the games that came after this for Spyro. And Ripto was a great main villain, and of course accompanied by his 2 lackeys, Crush and Gulp, and just a lot of fun things to do, a lot of fun things to explore in the game, and definitely some nice new additions which the first game didn't have. So henceforth, easily why this makes the top 10 for me. And let's go ahead and continue on. Number 8, Mega Man 2 for the NES. Oh, yes, sirree. I love Mega Man 2, and I know that this one is a fan favorite for a lot of people from the Mega Man games, and certainly it is my favorite of the Mega Man games. I love all the enemy all the enemy bosses that you've got to face going throughout. And I love the music in the game, especially Crashman's theme, Flashman's theme, Dr. Wily Stage 1, and numerous of other themes that are in the game, that I just really, really enjoy listening to as I play it. And of course, a very challenging game, once again, which obviously is something that I do enjoy, but certainly, though, one that once you do get to the point where you can actually complete the game, it's a very, very satisfying feeling. I don't want to go too much in detail, really, for any of the games at this point, trying to run through the countdown, but just kind of pointing out some things within it that I definitely do like. And like I said, and the original Mega Man was great, but this one just elevated it to a new level, and any of the subsequent games afterwards, just for me, I just, I enjoyed them, but like I said, for me, my personal opinion, they just didn't compare to Mega Man 2. So, henceforth, why I've easily got this on the number 8 slot. Now, let's go ahead and roll along. Number 7. Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis. And yes, this, of course, is the original Sonic. And, when I was mentioning before with Spyro about my favorite video game characters, well, Sonic, for me, has always been the cream of the crop. He is my absolute favorite video game character ever. And especially, like here with the classic Sonic, I'm not too big on the modern Sonic, really. I prefer the Genesis days. Again, kind of falling in line, like with what I said, as far as my favorite systems, my favorite consoles, and obviously favorite games go. Again, that's nothing against anybody who does like the more modern Sonic, with some of the later games that came out. But for me, the Genesis ones are the top of the top, of course, and this one was easily in my top 10. It's not my favorite of the Sonic games, but I absolutely do love the original. Again, a very challenging game. And going through the special stages, trying to collect the emeralds. Obviously, in this game, there's only 6 Chaos Emeralds. They introduced the 7th, in the next entry, which ended up being continued cycle after that. But this one, though, certainly provided that unique style gameplay where it's very fast-paced and all, which is kind of what they said they wanted to do. They wanted to deviate, essentially, from the style of gameplay that you would experience with Super Mario Brothers, for example, and go to this more fast-paced type action, and at times it can be dizzying, believe me, but it's just so much fun, and definitely love the Sonic games, and the original, easily a top 10 for me, henceforth why it's number 7 on the list. So let's go ahead and continue along. Number 6, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Sega Genesis. So everything that I just said about the original Sonic, you can take up to the next level for Sonic 2. I do like the addition of the 7th Chaos Emerald. I also like the addition of Sonic's sidekick Tails, or his full name Miles Tails Prower, which of course is a riff on miles per hour, of course. But anyway, though, this game, like I said, as much as I love the first game, I do kind of prefer the second one, and I like the new zones that they that they created for this game, the new style for the special stages, and then of course, upon completion of collecting all the 7 Chaos Emeralds, you can go super, as in Sonic can become Super Sonic, and that was something I always really loved from the Sonic games, of course too, and I know that they were essentially paying homage to Dragon Ball Z, henceforth the introduction of the 7th Chaos Emerald, like the 7 Dragon Balls, and then of course Super Sonic, obviously very comparable to a Super Saiyan. Essentially so anyways. And for me, that's just something else that I love about it too, because I'm an absolutely huge Dragon Ball Z fan. It's easily my favorite anime of all time, one of my favorite fandoms of all time. So the fact that, with Sonic, which obviously, again, Sonic, my favorite game character, and the Genesis Sonic games are among my, favorite games ever. It's just really, really cool to actually kind of incorporate the two. So again, so many awesome things about Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Like I said, as much as I love the first game, I do take Sonic 2 over the first, and I know that it's a fan favorite for everyone. I'm not going to say just yet if it's my absolute favorite, but you'll have to see. So let's go ahead and move along. Number 5, Metroid for the NES, and now, yes, we are in the top 5. And the original Metroid, and I know this is actually my game box, of course. Here, I know it's not the original game box that it came in. This is that sort of revamped version, which I believe was from a sort of take on the Game Boy release of Metroid, and then they revamped the box art for the NES release. I believe so. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on that, but I think that's what I read. But I do like this box art anyways. But of course, though, the original Metroid is not did not make my top 5 for no reason. It's such an awesome game, and the fact that you can explore around Planet Zebes and basically try to power up all your weapons and whatnot as you play through, because you want to essentially try to power up as much as possible when you need to enter the more difficult areas in the games, like the boss hideouts, i.e., Kraid and Ridley's hideouts. And of course, when you get to Torian, you really essentially want to be as powered up as possible, have as many energy tanks as possible, as many missiles as possible. When I play through, I actually try to pride myself in doing 100% completion, so I try to get everything that I can attain in the game, when I go ahead to play it through and complete it. So, but obviously, Torian being the last area, that means by the time I get there, I'm pretty much as well equipped as I can be, and trust me, going through that area, you definitely need it, especially dealing with the Metroids, and obviously once you get to that final battle with the Mother Brain. Because you've just got a lot of things in there that can hurt you and take a lot of health away. So so some good things to note. But again, obviously a very challenging game, and obviously one that I love. And I have played a little bit of Super Metroid for the SNES, vis-a-vis through a friend of mine, and it was definitely a really fun game too. Probably if I had grown up with Super Metroid, I possibly could have said that it could even have beat out the original, because I know a lot of people do feel that way. But obviously, I'm kind of a creature of habit. A lot of people kind of note me as the real life version of Sheldon Cooper, if you will. I'm kind of very set in my ways, and I'm very OCD and kind of strict in my routine. So, but because obviously the original Metroid is what I'm accustomed to, that's why this one kind of holds the ground at where it's at. So, anyway, let's go ahead and keep rolling on. Number 4, Ape Escape for the PS1. And I know this is a game that some people will be familiar with, but a lot of people won't. This was, to me, a very, very underrated gem, and definitely a really fun game. And this one spawned multiple sequels as well. I don't think that the Ape Escape games were as popular here in the United States as they were in, say, Japan and whatnot. Henceforth, why they didn't really get the exposure here. But I really got hooked on the Ape Escape games, and the first one especially. Easily my favorite of the series. I love the main character Spike. I love how fun it is trying to go through each of these stages, trying to capture the apes, and return them, because basically you got a time net and they're going throughout time, trying to rewrite history so that basically the apes can be in charge, and the leader of the pack, as you will, Spectre, is the one obviously in charge and behind everything. So it just makes for a lot of fun gameplay. Obviously you're going throughout different time eras, trying to complete the game and capture all the monkeys, apes, if you will. It just, they kind of refer to them as both in the game, so that's why I tend to as well. But anyway, though, just so much fun. Of course, you get these gadgets to use to help you throughout the game, and and you equip more and more as you go along. And each one, in fact, clearing certain areas can't be done without certain gadgets. So another obstacle / challenge that it adds to the game. But just so much fun. If I could maybe do a more in-depth video on this in the future, I definitely may consider that, especially for anyone that's really maybe interested, either for anyone that is familiar with it that would just like to, have more videos put out there on it, or anybody that's maybe new to Ape Escape that might like to hear a little bit more. So, but yeah, an absolutely fantastic fun game. So anyways, now we are reaching the top 3, ladies and gentlemen. Number 3, Spyro the Dragon for the PS1. Obviously, this being the original Spyro. And I do really like Spyro 2. Obviously, it was at number 9, I believe. However, nothing is Spyro related beat the original game for me. I really, really enjoy this. I have so many fond memories of playing Spyro the Dragon. This was essentially my first PS1 game, I would say. I'm trying to remember back when I got my PS1. It was a birthday present. But essentially, this was my real introduction to it, and I just became a humongous fan right off the bat. Obviously, again, I'm a big-time Spyro fan, and this game, trying to rescue all the dragons, save the Dragon Kingdom from the evil, nasty Nork. It just made in for such a fun game, and obviously a very challenging game as well. You may not think so at first, but there are actually parts of this game that can make you want to pull your hair out, and I've almost done that a few times playing it, especially some of the flight stages, which can be a real pain in the arse, if you will. But nonetheless, though, really fun. I did like the challenge, obviously, and all the different dragon worlds that you go to, they're all unique in their own ways. And the dragons that exist in those worlds, that live in those worlds, kind of pertain to whatever world they are part of. So you would kind of notice that playing through the game, which was a really cool aspect of it. And like I said, just easily my favorite Spyro game, and obviously my third favorite video game overall. So. Anyway, now to the final countdown. And here we go. Number 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles for the Sega Genesis. And yep, I know I said I wasn't really going to give it away at first what my favorite Sonic game was, but this one for me is the absolute cream of the crop. As far as the Sonic games go, I really, really love this game so much. It's obviously not only my second favorite video game, but it's one of the video games that I still to this day play among the most of all. There's so much playing time I put into this and trying to better and better myself each time now. I mean, I've obviously for years now have been able to complete the game, with all the emeralds intact. And this time around, because it is that sort of combined game with Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, when you play that full story mode, so now you've actually got 2 sets of emeralds, not just the original Chaos Emeralds, but you've also got the 7 Super Emeralds as well, which you need to try and collect both sets, and obviously I am able to do so. And then that unlocks the power of the Master Emerald, which exists in the game as well. It's what Robotnik is after, basically. And yes, I do refer to him as Dr. Robotnik, not really Dr. Eggman, but anyway, though, it's just so much fun, and you can play it in different modes. You can play as Sonic and Tails together, or Sonic alone, or Tails alone, or obviously you can play as Knuckles. And I've done all 4, completing the game, in each of those various facets. And they all kind of offer their own unique playthroughs. Obviously with Knuckles it's the most unique because he's got sort of his own areas that he can access that Sonic and Tails can't. And then of course too, you've got your transformations here. Collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds will allow both Sonic and Knuckles to transform into their super forms, so Super Sonic and Super Knuckles. And then collecting the 2 sets, the 7 Chaos Emeralds and the 7 Super Emeralds, will allow Sonic and Knuckles to reach their hyper forms, which are more elevated levels of power, and even and more unique abilities as well than their super forms. So you've got Hyper Sonic and Hyper Knuckles, and finally, with both sets of these emeralds, allows Tails to transform, of course, into Super Tails, and he's got that flicky army of doom, as everybody calls it, with the super flickies that assist him. So really, really cool stuff there. And then lately, with playing through 2, I've been trying my best to get to better my high score each time. Now I do. I was just playing it, and I did attain a newest high score. Which I'll probably go more in depth in that, because this is definitely a game that I want to make a more in-depth video on, and I'm actually really planning on it. This might be my next video, I should say, where I'm going to go more in depth on that. Currently, my high score in the game is 2,501,100. Yes, I did take a picture of that score, but I'll probably upload that when I make the video strictly on this. But basically, though, you can try to collect all the rings in the special stages when you collect the blue spheres as well to get the emeralds. But you got to try to unlock all the rings and get perfects in the stages, and those add up to a lot of points. Plus getting those magnetic orb bonus stages, or as I call them, the red star bonus stages, where you can add up to a lot of you can get a lot of rings in those as well. So certain things like that help you build up your score. So there's a lot to this game. Like I said, I can go on and on about this all day. But obviously, again, though, I do want to try and wrap things up here. So without further ado, though, folks, we are at the time for the number 1 here, and obviously this is my favorite video game of all time. So without further ado, number 1, Super Mario Brothers 3 for the NES. Oh yes, my all-time favorite video game. And it is kind of a toss-up between Sonic 3 and Knuckles and Super Mario Brothers 3, but I still kind of give this one the edge. Basically, as far as video games go, period, this was really my true introduction. My first video game console I ever got. My grandmother had gotten me was, of course, the Nintendo, the original NES, and this was the original game that I had with it. It came with it, so I got this, and actually the original Ninja Turtles game she got me is to go along with it as well. So another reason why that game is one that I'm very fond of, because I have such fond memories going back from such an early age. And obviously for both of these games, and this one as well, just like with Ninja Turtles, took me forever and a day basically to be able to beat the game. And this is one as well that I'm going to want to make a separate video just on itself, because there's a lot of secrets and things to unlock in the game, and you try to go for that sort of 100% completion, which is something that I really enjoy doing. And even though I didn't first beat it until I was say adulthood at that point, but now that I've been able to do that, now, like I said, I've been able to get better at trying to or not. I've been better at 100% completing it, I should say, which takes a lot of practice, with some of the other games that I try to do that with as well, i.e. Metroid. It took a lot of practice to get there. Obviously these are very challenging games. But this one, though, like I said, there's a lot of secrets that you need to know about to unlock, where you can get special items and this and that. I know a lot of people know about the whistles, but then you've got other things like those white mushroom houses, which unlock special items, the treasure ships, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of cool stuff within the game, and obviously a very, very, very challenging game, and all the worlds are really unique and really, really fun to play through. It'd be kind of hard for me to decide which one would be my favorite. I almost lean towards World 5, which was known as Skyland. That's one I have a lot of fun with. Obviously, you get a lot of good access to the Tanuki suit in World 5. So obviously, a lot of really cool things about it. So and then of course when you reach World 8 in Darkland, because going up through the first 7 worlds, you have to face Bowser's kids, the Koopa kids, along the way, and then of course Bowser himself is the final villain who you face in World 8 of the game, and it's really, really fun getting to that point and going through everything, and like I said, there's just so much I can talk about with Super Mario Brothers 3, but I know I've already been kind of running, so I want to go ahead and try to wrap things up though. So anyway, that does bring us to the end of the list, and once again, like I said, this is just my personal opinion. This is just my list of my top 10 favorite video games, and I do apologize for anyone else, if your favorite games aren't included. But like I said, in the comments, I'd love to hear what your favorite games are, so please feel free to share. I definitely would like to, do like to talk about this kind of stuff with people. It's really, really fun, and like I said, my list was just really what I'm most accustomed to and what I grew up with playing. So that's kind of why those games from those 3 systems, the NES, the Sega Genesis, and the PS1, were the games that constituted my top 10 list. So anyway, folks, though, that about wraps it up. And ladies and gentlemen, though, I do once again thank you so much for watching. If you would like to subscribe, please feel free to. Also, please feel free to comment, etc., etc. But remember, though, again, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, you be good to yourselves, and sayonara.